Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
And I'm Greg Krugen in Houston, and this is Texas, the issue is.
Week one of the special session is now in the books, and Democrats spent a majority of the time hammering Republicans about redistricting. I went one-on-one with Governor Greg Abbott to ask him why he added it to the call and to talk about some other topics. Why did you add redistricting to the special session call?
So since the last time that we did redistricting, the law has changed. And under the law that changed in a lawsuit that was filed by Democrats, and the decision came out last year, it says that coalition districts are no longer required.
Republicans defended this map for years.
Sure. And as they rightly should have, because the map that was drawn before this recent court decision that said coalition districts were not required. And the map, I believe, as drawn, could be upheld. That said, we're no longer compelled to have coalition districts. And as a result, we can draw maps not have coalition districts, and through that process maximizing the ability of Texans to be able to vote for their candidate of choice. And listen, one thing about this also, and that is this is a national based issue. Don't think that Texas is the only state that's doing this. Texas is the first in line because our primaries are earlier. You know, our filing deadline is a few months away here in December. There are other states that are Democrat states across the country where their election process begins much later, who have been talking about doing this very same thing. So this is a national-based issue as well.
There's been criticism of you saying you're letting President Trump call the shots.
Listen, people are always going to lodge criticisms. I'm not worried about stuff like that. What I'm worried about is making sure that we are going to have congressional districts in the state of Texas, where Texas is going to be represented in Washington, D.C., in ways that fit the structure of this recent court decision that allows Texas to draw these districts that also maximize the ability of Texans to be able to vote for their candidate of choice.
President Trump says he thinks he can pick up 5 Republican seats in Texas. Doesn't that signal that Republicans are a little bit nervous about the midterms?
So what we're focused on is not what may happen in the midterms. We're focused on making sure that we draw maps in the state of Texas that will maximize the ability of Texas residents across the state to be able to vote for their candidate of choice.
Where do you stand when it comes to THC in Texas?
No change in the marijuana laws. We need to ban THC as well as hemp products for children under the age of 21. We don't want them to be exposed to that. We also need to ban synthetics that are laced onto hemp products that are extraordinarily dangerous. That said, after we accomplish those two things, for adults, we need to have a highly regulated hemp industry to ensure that farmers are able to grow it and that hemp products that do not have an intoxicating level of THC on it can be sold in the marketplace.
So your problem is not the 0.03%. Your problem or concern is making sure that anyone under 21 doesn't get their hands on it, and there aren't products out there that are higher than the current legal limit.
For adults, we do want the THC level to be below 3%, or we're doing it in milligrams, 3 milligrams of THC. And it's called non-intoxicating levels of hemp that would be marketed. But it would be a highly regulated system.
Let's talk about the flood.
Sure.
You said it might not be a one-size-fits-all solution, but multiple solutions. Talk about your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, so there are many things we want to accomplish. One is to have early warning systems that will be effective to make sure that people will not be, in a way, trapped like they were this time. And an early warning system in Hunt, Texas could be very different than what we saw in other areas of Texas that got flooded, like in San Angelo or around the San Saba area or around the Williamson or Travis County areas. And so we got to find early warning systems that will be able to effectively communicate with the population to help them understand exactly what is needed. Another thing that people have to realize, and that is, An early warning system doesn't mean an evacuation system. What we saw both in the recent flooding in Hunt, Texas, as well as the last catastrophic flooding down there back in 1987, there were people who were evacuating that got swept away by the waters. The way the Guadalupe River is in that area is oftentimes the best thing you can do to protect your life is to stay where you are, go toward higher ground in the location that you're in, as opposed to getting onto a road and trying to evacuate. There were several people who lost their lives in the Hunt area because they were trying to evacuate and got swept away and lost their life.
That was my sit down with Governor Greg Abbott. My one word is not one word, it's toe the line. Rudy Koski, what's your one word?
Stephen, I'm going to go with convoluted.
A word I can't spell. Greg Rugen, what's your word?
All right, Stephen, my word is sideways, which is where this special session could go in the snap of a finger.
All right, the Fox Texas Trio will be back after this break. The Fox Texas Trio is back. Week 1 in the books. Greg Rugen, did anything shock you?
Yeah, I was surprised you got that interview and not me or Rudy. But seriously, I guess I'm surprised there was not more high-level pre-session negotiation between Abbott and Patrick's people regarding what ultimately happens with THC. It appears our state's 2 top leaders have now very publicly drawn separate lines in the sand and are still at loggerheads. The ball, to me, appears to be in Patrick's court. He can accept heavy regulation over an outright ban and legitimately claim progress, if not perfection. Or he can block regulation and force Texas to keep the same Wild West, over-the-counter, casualty-generating THC trade we've got in place now for potentially another 2 years or more. Lastly, my guess is, powerful as he is, Patrick can't muscle enough support to override an Abbott veto. So it comes down to, will Lieutenant Dan accept a deal? Guys?
Rudy, what about you?
You know, Stephen, we certainly had a lot of issues in this first week of a 30-day session. The Senate doubling down on the THC ban bill that Greg just talked about, the revelation that there is no uniform certification for emergency disaster managers in Texas. Stunning. We learned that state funding was actually made available for a warning system on the Guadalupe River. We saw Democrats roll out their triple header of Beto, Talarico, and Casar to protest congressional redistricting. And late in the week, we got, of all things, backhaul rumblings of a potential state capitol sex scandal to add to the distractions. It all makes for a hot mess during a hot summer special session, which is the big reason why my word was convoluted, Stephen.
Greg, Rudy mentioned redistricting. That's been a big talk this week and will be for weeks to come in this special session. Governor Abbott said that he's just trying to comply with the courts. Are you buying that?
Stephen, while Democrats are screaming bloody hell about this power play, what you aren't hearing are any Republicans publicly advocating for this Trump-engineered push for additional GOP seats in Texas. My wag or wild-ass guess is that Abbott and company are just going through the motions with this whole hyper-gerrymandered maneuver, you know, sparking sound and fury, but ultimately signifying nothing in the end. I will say that as Democrats busy themselves mounting a furious defense, they aren't playing much offense, and we all know the old political adage, if you're defending, you're losing. Just a thought. Guys?
Rudy, do you agree with the gentleman from Harris County?
Well, I think it's all redistricting is just simply political gamesmanship, taking advantage of an opening. You know, Democrats have been playing the electioneering game in federal court for more than a decade now. They're reportedly considering doing the same thing that they're lambasting the Republicans of doing by redrawing maps in blue states, gerrymandering in their own Democratic candidates. Heck, even Governor Gavin Newsom's trying to get around their election redistricting laws there in that state to make it California more blue, if you can even imagine that. So, you know, it is what it is. It's just, just another game of political gamesmanship and some political drama. and a lot of finger pointing. Stephen?
All right, hey, I'm going to take it. We'll end it there. When we come back, Texas Democrats in full battle mode over Republican plans to redraw electoral boundaries. Welcome back. Frantic and furious. That's how I describe the outcry from Texas Democrats over the mid-decade bid to redraw congressional boundaries and generate new Republican House seats in Washington. Here's a sampling of the pushback that's only just begun.
I asked the governor and the state legislature to put people over politics this time. Allow the people in this community to have their voice, have their vote, be represented, and have a seat at the table. This attempt to get rid of majority-minority districts will have far-reaching effects on people within this district and so much more.
Texas Democrats need to have every option on the table. That includes breaking quorum, having filibusters, marching in the streets.
It is about racism, and it's about partisan Republican racism, a desire to eliminate Black representation, weaken Latino representation in the Congress of the United States of America.
This is not normal. It's not normal to redistrict in the middle of a decade. And this is not something that's coming from the people of Texas or the people of America.
Both Black Texans and Hispanic Texans have less representation than our population in the state of Texas, and that is by design.
The scheme of the Republicans has consistently been to make sure that they mute our voices.
All options will continue to be on the table as it relates to our efforts to push back legislatively and legally in Texas as it relates to this illegal, unconstitutional, and egregious effort to rig the elections and gerrymander the maps in Texas.
We hope people will show up and speak out against this madness, this gerrymandering on steroids is what I call it. It feels like a racial attack, absolutely.
This is an attack on democracy and nothing more than a power grab. We must fight them with everything we've got, because in this country, the voters choose who they elect, not the other way around.
The population growth is almost exclusively Black and brown, but the two new districts were drawn to be majority white. So tell me how that's not a racial gerrymander, from jump.
This is a 5-alarm fire, what's going on in Texas right now.
All right, gentlemen, clearly Texas Democrats are treating this Trump-driven redistricting bid as an existential threat with allegations of racism and voter suppression. Rudy, I'm hearing chances of an orchestrated walkout at some point are nearly 100%. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing it's more rhetoric, 100%. More actual, don't necessarily know about that. It's a very fine line, Greg, to cross that line. A walkout by Democrats could jeopardize the flood response legislation and train wreck the hemp THC debate. Remember, the quorum break strategy was a miserable failure the last time that Dems dashed to D.C. Boy, did that backfire. It was there's a lot of high potential to backfire now. Plus, it's important to note that the outrage that we're hearing in Texas is coming at a time, as I mentioned earlier, when Democrats in blue states are considering the same political rewrite in those blue states. And again, we hear votes matter. Well, this is from the party that threw out every one of its primary votes during the 2024 presidential election and elected and nominated an individual that didn't win a single primary state. So the political hypocrisy and the rhetoric certainly is high as the soon-to-be August temperature, Greg.
All right, Stephen, we were just in Austin together, and what I didn't hear anywhere at the Capitol was a whole lot of Republican enthusiasm for redrawing these election maps. On the contrary, some members were privately expressing major reservations. What's your take?
Oh, yeah. We were both under the pink dome, and man, it seemed like I had bad breath or something because Republicans were dodging me when I brought up the redistricting word, and at least one of them had some colorful language that I can't say on this broadcast about why they aren't talking about it. So yeah, it's interesting that Republicans have kind of been a little quiet. Now, in the Senate, they did spend day one talking about this for a long time. But still, you haven't just heard any lawmakers that are reporting back to Austin and, championing this redistricting plan. I wonder why. Maybe because some of the changes could, down the line, impact them in their districts, maybe not immediately for 2026, but if they plan on being in that seat for a little longer. Democrats are going to keep pushing this. To Rudy's point, I don't know if a walkout's going to work because they can't walk out before flood legislation is passed. That will make them look very bad. And so they have to kind of play a balancing act of passing something that is bipartisan and then maybe skipping town.
So what do you think, Rudy? Is there a chance Governor Abbott and the Texas Republicans are just going through the motions? After all, creating new Republican opportunity districts, as Stephen just pointed out, can't help but dilute the safe seats they already hold.
When the governor added redistricting, you could hear the political groan from the Capitol when it happened. They know that it's controversial and it's going to, it's a monkey wrench in this whole political process. But there's also several redistricting hearings that are scheduled to take place. So we'll get a pretty good idea of what's in play and, most importantly, who is in play in this political game of chicken.
All right, Stephen, by any definition, Governor Abbott has jam-packed the agenda this session. So assuming Democrats are itching to break quorum over redistricting, could the whole call, all 18 items, crumble and nothing but perhaps flood safety get done?
I think the whole 18 items may crumble just even if Democrats stay in town. And that was a question that I asked the governor. I said, they only have 30 days to do this. And, as of this interview airing, okay, now we're heading into week 2, and they're still in the committee process. The governor, in his words, said if you look at the regular session, they passed about 200 bills per month. So he said the call is 18 bills. He thinks they can do it in one session. I don't think it's going to happen in one session.
All right, Rudy, what do you think? Could this special session be a bust?
Yeah, if it is a bust, which is a possibility, you can bet one thing. Governor Abbott is going to bring them back for another try. Shocking, right? Well, he showed that he has no problem in calling multiple special sessions. And if things are not convoluted enough, well, we have other issues to deal with, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And, could there be multiple sessions this year? Yeah, very real possibility. But the question is that it's, will the big ones get done, and does he punt on some of the smaller issues? And we're just going to have to wait and see on that.
Okay.
Now, we certainly have other issues to deal with. Greg, Stephen, me. We'll break those down after this break. All right, welcome back. This is the segment where we get to air our off issues, a little off-topic issues. And my off-topic issue is this latest trend that I've noticed whenever I go to a convenience store or go to a fast food restaurant, and they want a tip, and it's like, really? You want a tip for me actually getting my own food? What's up with that? When I do give a tip, it's usually ranges in between 20 and 25%. So I'm a big tipper. I like to tip great service. But when I go to a convenience store, I'm not going to tip the individual. And I had the audacity, guys, at one point I went to a retail store, a boutique type store, and it asked me for a tip. Come on, man. That's just unbelievable. All right, Stephen, give me a tip. What's your issue?
My issue isn't a bad one. I am so happy that College Football 26 is out. I've been playing it nonstop. I actually beat Ole Miss last night between the hedges, just like Rudy. We'll see if that really plays out in October. And then a shout out, we can't do ads on here, but a shout out to the hotel that we stay at when we go to Austin. They are very gracious and let us use their pool deck for the awesome shot of the Pink Dome. I yield my time to the gentleman from Harris County.
All right, my issue is with predatory car rental companies. Yep, I am a victim. Recent trip out of state with my family, handed over my credit card number and rented a car. 3 days later, turned it back in, full tank, no damage, pristine conditions. 7 days later, I get an invoice for a $400 smoking fee and a $300 special cleaning fee. Here's the rub. My wife and I don't smoke, and the rental car inspector who took back the car gave us the all clear, thank you very much, after an inspection. For now, I'm withholding the company's name, but needless to say, there will be justice here, or it's all-out war. I suspect there are more unwitting victims out there, and I will lead you if necessary. With that, you can see the interview or any of our past interviews by going to our YouTube pages.
And keep the conversation going by hitting us up on social media.
Now, the special session is entering into its second week. There's going to be a lot more issues, big issues coming out of the debate that's going on underneath the Capitol Dome and also in Kerrville. We'll touch on those, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget, let us know what you think the issue is.